Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Kelly Green Hour. And as you can tell by the sound of my voice and by my introduction, it's not a victory Green Hour, as the Philadelphia Eagles blew a 21-0 lead to fall to the Dallas Cowboys 24-21 yesterday. In brutal, heartbreaking fashion, it was an all-time bad loss. I'm your host, LG Harrell, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Connor Donald. Connor, I don't know how you felt about that game, but the last 24-ish hours just have been brutal for me. And listening to sports radio and going on social media with all the fraudulent Cal Turd fans that are in this area, they're all celebrating, even though they're just 5-1. Still have a long shot to win the division and potentially make the playoffs. But they won their Super Bowl yesterday by beating us.
Yeah, I mean, it was so hard to be sitting beside, people watching the game and watching it all just fall apart and crumble. It was brutal. It was a really hard game to watch. There was so much promise for one quarter, and then literally everything that could go wrong or that we didn't want to see both went wrong, and we got to see what we didn't want to see. And it was just an overall extremely frustrating game to watch, and hopefully it's one that we can put in the rear view. And it isn't, because I know that a lot of people are starting out by saying this is the collapse, that we've been waiting for. I think that's a bit of an overreaction, but I mean, it's hard not to start to think of it like that. But it was definitely a really hard football game to watch, especially when it started out with such promise.
Yep. Before we jump into that, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHarrell54. Follow the Eagles Pin Pull Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you get your podcasts, at Eagles Pin Pull Network. If you're joining us live, and let us know your thoughts in the chat. It was not a fun. After the first 20-ish minutes, the last 41 minutes were not fun if you're an Eagles fan. As you guys noticed, we usually are here on Tuesday nights. It's going to be a wonky couple of weeks with Thanksgiving here in the States. On Thursday, we are doing the review show for this Eagles-Dallas game tonight. We'll do our preview show since the Eagles play on Black Friday. We'll do that Thursday, 11 or 12 Eastern time. We'll have an earlier show for you. Next week, we'll be back live Monday for the review of the Eagles and Chicago Bears, and then we should be able, potentially, hopefully, maybe get back into our normal Friday slot, Tuesday slot. We'll see how things go. Life throws a bunch of stuff at you, and we just have to make adjustments on the fly. So the game couldn't have started off any better. Dallas gets the ball. The Eagles force them to turn the ball over on downs, as Dallas went for it on fourth down from the 50-yard line, which was a shock. The Eagles got A.J. Brown involved right away. He was able to catch a touchdown pass, jumped out to a 7-0 lead. They were able to get the ball back again. Then we had I think it was the tush push, if I'm not mistaken. Jalen's was able to score from about 10-ish yards out using his legs. And then they got the tush push touchdown later. It was 21-0 before we could blink. And it looked like the perfect start. It looked like it was going to be a rout. And we had mentioned on Saturday, Connor, that the Eagles had a chance to literally win the division by Black Friday. If you beat Dallas and Dallas loses to the Chiefs on Thanksgiving, the Eagles beat the Bears on Thanksgiving, the division is wrapped up before December. And it felt like the Eagles took and Nick Sirianni after the game and even today during his press conference said that they didn't take their foot off the gas, but it definitely felt like the Eagles took their foot off the gas. And I have no idea. Last year's team would have been able to milk the clock by running the football. This year's team cannot run the ball. I don't know if it's because Saquon had too many carries last year. This offensive line's obviously not as good as it was last year. Everybody, coming into the year was talking about it's the best offensive line in football. It's nowhere near the best offensive line in football. Jordan Mailata's playing bad. Landon Dickerson, Quinnen Williams got him on a couple of reps yesterday, and he is also playing hurt. Cam Jurgens playing hurt. Tyler Steen's not as good as Mekhi Becton. Fred Johnson's in there for Lane Johnson, who's out. And Fred Johnson was the sixth offensive lineman when we went to our six-man front. Then we had to go to Pryor. Pryor had a big penalty on a big, like 35-yard gain by Dallas Goedert. And he had a penalty, like, The Eagles shot themselves in the foot. 14 penalties is ridiculous. 2 turnovers, one by Saquon, and then the idiotic Xavier Gibson play. You're inside the 5. Why the hell are you catching a punt? It made 0 sense. Just after that 21-0 lead, Connor, and I know I'm going on a long tangent here, the Eagles just forgot to play football. Coaching decisions were terrible. Kevin Patullo, after the 15-play script, whatever it is, he has 0 idea how to make adjustments. Something needs to change. Sirianni said today nothing is going to change, and I get it. It's a short week. Maybe going into from Friday's game, the Black Friday game, to the Chargers, which is a Monday, that gives you a couple extra days of preparation. Maybe then they make the change. I don't know if it would be Sirianni. I don't know if it would be Leffler, the QB coach, who called plays at Bowling Green. Get it? It's Bowling Green. It's college football. But he was able to scheme open Hannon, the tight end that got drafted by the Browns. I think that's his last name.
Fannin,
I'm sorry. Thank you. So it's not going to happen this week, but something needs to change. Kevin Patullo cannot do it. He doesn't know how to make adjustments. And the most damning thing, and this isn't just to Patullo, but this goes to Stoutland and Sirianni as well. Landon Dickerson after the game said what Dallas did in the game, they didn't show on tape. He said they went to a 5-man front. Do you know what Jay Glazer said in the pregame show on Fox? Dallas is going to go to a 5-man front. What the hell? Dallas, now that they have Osa Odigizua, Quinnen Williams, Kenny Clark, they have an abundance of defensive tackles. They want to get them all out onto the field. They're going to put them all out into the field. And in order to do that, you go to a 5-man front. How this brain trust of coaches for the Eagles couldn't figure that out and couldn't design plays to exploit that is mind-boggling. And it's so frustrating because you had a chance to pretty much end this division, and the Eagles blew it. It was an all-time bad loss, and I am disgusted and have been disgusted all day. I apologize for that 5-minute rant.
No. I mean, I get it. Rants are necessary on days like today and after games like we saw the other day. They said they had no tape on it. They showed the 5-man front against the Raiders on, I think, more than half their defensive snaps. So while, yes, they played on Monday, you still don't really start preparing for the next week till Tuesday anyways. So just flip on the Monday tape and you could have seen that they were doing that. If Jay Glazer knew that it was happening, and he didn't drop that report like it was a bombshell. Jay Glazer obviously had that report in from days prior, or from even when the Quinnen Williams deal was made. People knew that they were going to have to get those players on the football field. They took this approach for a reason. I mean, I've seen a few tweets, not as many as you would think, but where people are starting to think maybe it's time to call out Jeff Stoutland too, because this offensive line is clearly not looking up to par like we usually expect from him. And it's just like you said, there's just so many things that have gone wrong. And I agree with you. I don't think you can take Patullo out on a short week, but with the extra prep, if the offense continues to look stale, like you said, it looked like he had a script. It worked to a T, and instead of continuing down the line of that script as long as it was continuing to work for you, we just went right back into our insanely uber conservative nature. And our conservative nature is what has continued to shoot ourselves in the foot over and over and over again this year. We can't run the ball. We can't run clock. We can't do that. And then in turn, while we did have possession, we did own time of possession by 30 minutes, but I do think 10 of those, almost all of it, a good half of it was the first quarter alone. They ultimately ended up looking like the defense was out there way more than it needed to be. And there's other people who reacted very similar to that on Twitter. They were mentioning it felt like we were out there way more and that we lost the possession battle, because it did feel like that at times, especially, once the third and the fourth quarter hit. And we kind of talked about Dak Prescott and how he's a garbage time king. If he has, and that was something that also worried me was, if he's the king of garbage time minutes, 3 scores is not enough because he can start to make things happen. And then, of course, we're going to dive into it. The injuries started happening. It just felt like there was no discipline. There was only a set amount of plays to get you set up on offense. And then, like you said, Patullo completely went back to what he's felt most comfortable in, but that hasn't worked for the Eagles. It was just everything that could go wrong after the first quarter did go wrong. And I mean, I think even if the Eagles' offense looked, which I am shocked that we are 7-point favorites on Friday. Shocked, because the Chicago Bears have actually started to look like a far more competent football team. And they're offensively, they're averaging, since their bye week, they're averaging almost 325 yards a game on offense. And we know we're going without Makuba, likely without Adoree Jackson because he's in concussion protocol. Likely
Reed Blankenship.
Likely Reed Blankenship. Like, you're going back out there on, it's like a Thursday night game. You prepare for it like it would be a Thursday night game. And so, I mean, to think that they're not going to put 350 plus yards potentially up on this defense after what the Dallas Cowboys did, I mean, it's totally possible. The only difference is I would trust Dak Prescott over Caleb Williams, but because we've seen Caleb do some wild stuff. But yeah,
and we're going to talk about it on Thursday, but like, I have no idea what they're going to do in the secondary. Maybe you put Michael Carter back at safety next to Sidney Brown, and Sidney Brown is the one that injured Makuba. I don't like Sidney Brown. I don't think he's any good. The Eagles really have to figure out their safety position in the offseason. Maybe they sign Justin Simmons, and I know he hasn't played. Who knows what type of shape he's in? Who knows what he remembers for Fangio's system? But they have to do something. They have Andre. The only other one they have in this on the team is Andre Sam. He's on the practice squad, so you have to think he's going to be brought up. I don't want to put Cooper DeJean at safety. We also saw Cooper DeJean outside corner. Yeah, no, keep him at the nickel. He got used and abused as outside corner. Now I get it. He doesn't practice that often, so maybe if he had practice time there, he could potentially be better, and you wouldn't be going up against Pickens and Lamb. So like that would also help. But I much prefer Cooper because when Cooper went to the outside, Dallas started running the ball. And what is Cooper really good at? He's really good at diagnosing plays and tackling. And Dallas, Javonte Williams was getting a good 5-6 yards a carry. He ended up finishing with, he only had 87 yards carrying. He averaged a little over 4 yards per carry, but like that matters. When you can get 4 yards at a pop and you're in that last drive that when Dallas needed, when Jalen took that sack on 3rd and 2, which I can't believe the Eagles just didn't tush push it twice. Like, just tush push it, get the first down, keep the ball, kick the game winning field goal. How hard is that? But Dallas was able to milk the rest of that clock. I don't know how much time was that, 5-6 minutes, but by running it, being able to go off their out of the play action, the Eagles, Dean had a sack, and it was a great sack. He ran right through Javonte Williams. But other than that, the Eagles barely got any pressure on Dak. And Dallas's offensive line is okay, but the Eagles pride themselves, obviously, on their front four. Jalen Carter didn't have as good of a game as I expected them to have. Nolan Smith didn't do much of anything. Jalen Phillips didn't do much of anything. Jordan Davis had one play, I think, where he had a tackle in the backfield. It was just what could go wrong, what did go wrong for the Eagles: injuries, penalties, turnovers. And what is Sirianni's mantra? Tough, detailed, together. Yeah, they were not tough, they were not detailed, and the together part doesn't mean anything if you can't fulfill the first two of the tough and detailed. It's a short week. You kind of have to throw this out of the back of your, but you watch the tape today and try to figure it out. But I have zero idea what the Eagles are going to do offensively and how they can fix it. And welcome aboard, Abid Sazad says KP scripted 3 good drives and then threw it completely away because Nick said we need to protect the lead. There's no excuse for why he would just go away from that. And then the excuse is Dallas adjusted. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, KP, 0 adjustments to what Dallas's defense did. And Vic Fangio got destroyed by Schottenheimer. And look, I'm not putting the loss on the defense. The defense has been the reason why we're 8-3 now. Like defense is the reason why we're winning majority of these games. But the offense, like was stated, it went away with. I would have kept throwing the ball to AJ Brown. He look, AJ is right. I've said it. AJ doesn't necessarily want the ball always thrown to him. Does he appreciate it? Of course he does. But they need to get the passing offense going. And the first quarter, throwing the ball to AJ, throwing the ball to Schmitty, it was actually working. And then they went away from it, kept running it, in predictable downs. And when Saquon's only averaging 2 yards a carry, that's not going to help. Question for you, Connor. Last year, we had a motivated Saquon Barkley after the Hard Knock stuff with the Giants, his career with the Giants, and he wanted to prove that the Giants made a mistake by not, giving him the big contract. He came here, 2,000-yard season, offensive player of the year, Super Bowl, bunch of crap in the offseason, Madden cover, award shows, everything. Then the Eagles gave him, adjusted his contract, whatever it is, gave him more money. Does he look like he's even motivated anymore?
I mean, the way he's talking does not sound like the Saquon Barkley of last year. It doesn't sound like there's a whole lot of motivation there. It sounds like Howie did a goodwill gesture, and he probably prematurely did the goodwill gesture. This is why you don't just ultimately extend people the minute they're able to be extended, or give them fresh new contracts after. Granted, it was a historic year. It's an all-time running back year. I fully understand that, but you still had him undercut. The next year, he was going to be on your team no matter what, and it's a go out, prove it to me, and I will give you more. Or adjust to, like, he gave a full new extension. Like, if you want to adjust a contract and be like, okay, remember how you're not guaranteed your third year? How about I guarantee half of your third year? No, he added years on. He added guaranteed money. He did the full extension thing after just 1 year on the team. And I'm not saying that he wasn't semi-justified in doing it. I'm saying this is a lesson to Howie, and this is a lesson to other executives in the league. This is why you don't force extensions or necessarily show goodwill things. Football is such a what are you doing for me now type of sport, and it can change in the blink of an eye. We've seen it so quickly change for many players in the NFL. And I'm not saying Saquon didn't deserve it. I'm not saying Saquon isn't a good football player, but how he is with the media and what we're seeing, like especially this Dallas game was by far one of his worst games since he was a Giant. And I'd have a hard time picking the worst game since he was even a Giant. This was like a bad game. He had the fumble. I don't know if it was the field or what was going on, but he slipped up a bunch.
He's been slipping a lot this year.
Yeah, I don't know if he needs to do some with those cleats, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel like he's motivated. And I'm not saying he didn't deserve some goodwill gesture, but give him more guaranteed money. Add a year and give him more guaranteed money. Don't add a year with a full extension and a boatload of more guaranteed money.
Especially with the amount of carries. Especially with the amount of carries he had last year. Usually when somebody has that many carries, the next year they're not as good. He only has, like at this point last year, he was at over 1,300 yards rushing. He's at only like 680 plus yards this year so far through 11 games. Like he's averaging pretty much half the yards he averaged last year. It's not good. 10 carries for 22 yards, and then he had 7 receptions for 52. Not like on a couple of those passes or receptions, he looked quick. Like he still has the burst, but the fumble, just that was a killer right there. What are your thoughts at the end of the first half? They had 17 seconds, 2 timeouts, maybe you could potentially get 30 yards and have a field goal attempt, but they kind of up 21-7, after Dallas had scored the touchdown, they kind of just sat on it, went into the locker room knowing they got the ball back. Dallas kind of took that as a win for them. They had all the momentum and obviously continued with the momentum in the second half.
Yeah, that was just one of those decisions by Nick Sirianni that just made absolutely, to me, you got to stop with this giving up, these third and long give ups, we get the ball after the half, but we're losing momentum. Let's just go to the locker room. That type of stuff just has to stop. There has to be this whatever this give up portion of the playbook is, they got to throw it away. because it's becoming so we don't have momentum for longer than on offense for longer than a quarter. Usually no we got lucky with a quarter. Usually it's 1 or 2 drives and the momentum is dead. So we have no right to have a give up portion of our playbook offensively. That needs to be going in the garbage, and you have to be always trying to get those yards, because you never know what you can do. And we know Jake's got a pretty good leg. Obviously he missed a field goal. That sucks. Maybe in that moment at the end of the first half, you could have got that field goal made up for that, because Aubrey had a missed field goal on the other side as well. And he got a chance to make up for it on that final drive, and with the Xavier Gipson situation that happened. So, I mean, ultimately, I feel like at this point that part of the playbook needs to be ripped out, thrown away, and every play should damn well count for something for this offense. It has to start being something that counts for this offense, because I think it was like people were putting out the stats throughout the game that, when they played after the first quarter, we ended up with 85 total yards of offense, maybe 100 something. Like, it was such a minuscule amount.
The first 3 drives, the Eagles had 192 yards of total offense, and then I think after that they had just over 100 or whatever it was after that. Like, that's unacceptable. And I was going to mention what Abid just said. Nick needs to go back to his 2020, 2021 mentality. Have Jalen run and make plays with his feet right now, and let KP do something else besides curls. I want him also to stop being conservative, to be that guy. What was he, when he first got here? He was all about going for first down, or going for it on fourth down, being aggressive. He hasn't been aggressive this year. And I don't know why, but again, the end of the first half situation, on that the drive where Elliott missed the long field goal, it felt like they were playing just for the field goal. Like, you can't do that. If you play, Jalen said, I think it was after the Rams game, he said, we got to get out of this mentality of playing not to lose. And that felt like exactly what they did after they got out to a 21-0 lead. It was like, let's just get out of here with the win. The offense couldn't do anything. They couldn't sustain any drives. As Ewing, welcome aboard, says, the defense gave up so many yards because the offense couldn't put any long drives together. This is like a big player bust offense. They have that big play to Devontae Smith, who made a great adjustment and a great catch, by the way. He had a pretty good game as well. But other than that, they don't do it. They don't know how to have a long sustain. Remember the Pittsburgh game last year? They got the ball back with 10 plus minutes left, and the Pittsburgh didn't see the ball the rest of the game. We can't do that anymore. We don't run the football. We don't all the routes are the same. There's nothing where we finally got AJ going across the middle. We got him on a couple of slants here and there, but you don't see Devontae starting on one side of the field, whether it's the left or right, and then running across the field to the other. With his speed and the way he runs routes, it's almost impossible for a DB to stay with him. And you could create confusion. Maybe you get a linebacker to run in the corner, a safety to run in the corner, like Carter ran into Quinyon Mitchell and Pickens play on that last drive. We don't cause mass confusion in the secondary for the opponents, and they're able to just sit on routes. They're able to just say, all right, I got this guy because I know that they're not going to move him. He's going to run one of 3 routes, and that's what it seems like Patullo has them doing. Now, is this Patullo's offense, or is this just the system in which Sirianni wants to play? I think it's a little bit of both. And we're at the point again, Steichen was really good. Then Sirianni made the Brian Johnson hire, and I think that was more for Jalen. It didn't work out. Laurie and Howie made the Kellen Moore hire. Kellen Moore went and got a head coaching job after we won the Super Bowl. You win the Super Bowl, Sirianni gets a contract extension. Sirianni gets to hire hire the offensive coordinator that he wants. He keeps his boy. It's not working out. He's never going to be able to hire an offensive coordinator again. It just can't happen. And and I get it. The issue is the Eagles went to the Super Bowl. Kellen Moore got the job after the Super Bowl. How many available offensive-minded coaches or offensive coordinators are out there? Not many. Any of them are either in college or they got picked up by new coaching staffs or on other coaching staffs. So I get it. You had the pick of the litter. You didn't have the best to pick from. But that's when you kind of have to get creative. Go to the college ranks maybe. He's never going to leave USC. But Lincoln Riley, when he was at Oklahoma and he had Jalen Hurts was like second in the Heisman voting. I don't think he would do it, but there's no salary cap for coaches, right? Call up Lincoln Riley. How much do you want to be the OC? The only issue with that, though, is we're going to get to a point if he's really good with Jalen, somebody's going to poach him to be a head coach in the NFL. So I get that that's the pro. That's the pro. There's pros to it and cons to it, but the Eagles need to figure something out because Patullo is not the guy, and he proved it again. He proved it once again on Sunday against Dallas.
Just trying to think of what to hit on first here. So, okay, all good. I wanted to point out the drive. So after the second quarter touchdown that put us up 21-19, our drives were 2 minutes and 9 seconds, end of half. 1 minute and 27 seconds, 2 minutes and 9 seconds, 2 minutes and 16 seconds. And then we got into the fourth quarter where we had a 3 minute and 53 second and a 4 minute and 12 second drive. But you cannot expect your offense to continue. This goes back to Ewing 609's comment. You cannot expect your defense to go out there every 2 minutes and you can look at Dallas's drives. They were not a whole lot better, but that's because they were able to move the ball so quickly and so effectively that they didn't have to have 5 minute drives or 6 minute drives for the most part. And that you can't have that. And I kind of alluded to that in an earlier in our preview episode, that you cannot continue to put this off defense in a situation where they're going out there every 2 or 3 minutes. And I mean, with TV timeouts and whatever you're talking about, every 4 or 5 minutes, you're expecting this defense to go and run because the offenses that come and face us are way more creative than our offense. So our defense actually has to work. They've done really good. They've looked really good up until this point. But this is why you cannot lean into an defense to solely win you a Super Bowl. Because if you come to the right offense that's able to put you on your heels over and over again because your offense is not sustaining drives, they're going to be able to put points up. They're going to be able to put yards up. And we're just lucky it's the Cowboys, because the Cowboys had the opportunity to make this a lot worse than 24-21. They got lucky. It didn't.
Dak threw the interception in the end zone. Turpin fumbled in the red zone. If I know we beat the Rams a month ago, but if we had to face the Rams now, the Rams are going to boat race us. It's not even going to be close.
For sure.
Right. The way Matt Stafford is playing, he's playing at an MVP level. He is the MVP of the league right now. He has thrown 27 touchdowns since his last interception, which is ridiculous. Devontae Adams leads the league in touchdown catches. They have Puka Nacua, who catches everything. Kyron Williams is running good. Their defense is young, fast, hungry. Like, the Rams are, and I get it. The Eagles have beaten the Rams 3 times in the last 12 months. I get it. But you know who the Rams are picturing every time they go out there? They're picturing the Eagles, because they don't want what's happened the last 3 times to happen to them again. They feel like if Jalen Carter doesn't sack Matt Stafford in the divisional round, the Rams are going to the Super Bowl and beating the Chiefs. The Rams would have hosted the Commanders, and the Rams would have beat the Commanders probably, and then the Rams would have went and played the Chiefs and probably beat the Chiefs with the way that they were playing. That's what they think. That's what they're thinking right now. That's why, like they're the number one team. They're the number one seed in the NFC right now because of the Eagles lost yesterday. And while the Eagles do hold the tiebreaker, and the Rams still have to face Detroit, who's not playing as well. They're struggling a little bit. They still have to play Seattle. Like, they still have a couple of tough games left. They're still, like, every game they're picturing the Eagles because they know that, like, that's who the potential matchup potentially in the NFC Championship game if the Eagles can figure this stuff out. The other thing is, like, did you watch the Giants? Did you see what Jameis Winston did on the road in Detroit against that defense? Like, he threw for almost 400 yards. The Eagles scored 16 points. Now, the Eagles defense also only gave up 9, technically 6 because Sirianni decided to go for it and pretty much gave them a free field goal. But like, I don't understand why when we play offense, it's like pulling teeth. But when you see all these other teams play offense, people are running wide open. They're being creative, and the Eagles have none of that. And it's so frustrating whenever, the Eagles aren't playing and you're watching the 1 o'clock window of games, or you're watching the Sunday night game or the Monday night game, which we'll watch tonight. Like, and you see all these offenses being creative and having a bunch of success, and the Eagles just can't sustain offensive success.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. There's not much more to add on the offensive side of the ball. Some things clearly have to change. This offense is not having fun. None of them look really overly motivated. None of them really, I don't know, like, who has the backbone there that needs to say something, or if stuff's being said and it's just outright being completely ignored, which I could totally also potentially see.
So going off of what you just said, I think that's why AJ's speaking out. Because I've mentioned it before, he's probably said it behind closed doors. And everybody's like, okay, yeah, here, we'll figure it out. And nothing changes. That's why I don't blame him for coming out. I don't blame him for saying stuff in the media. I don't blame him for talking and being frustrated, because he is right. And everybody's saying, well, he shouldn't be doing it this way. Well, how do you know that he hasn't gone out of his way and hasn't gone to somebody and said something behind closed doors? And they just ignored him. Remember, he put out that message, using me but not using me, and whatnot. Like, how do we know he hasn't? That's why I don't care that he's talking, because he's not wrong. And the offense the best the offense looked yesterday was when they were throwing him the ball. Did he look like he was washed when he was catching the ball, breaking tackles, and making? No, he didn't. He looked like the AJ Brown of old. Get the ball to AJ, get the ball to Devontae, start throwing the ball. And if you can consistently throw the football, complete passes down the field, that'll force defenses to play safeties back, and they won't be able to, put 7-8 in the box, and then maybe Saquon can go off. Or maybe the Eagles take some carries away from Saquon and give him to Tank Bigsby. Bigsby's averaging 9 yards a carry. I get it. It's a limited sample size. He had 1 carry for 8 yards yesterday, but on the season, he's averaging like 9 yards a carry. He's got more burst right now than Saquon, and you can see it when he touches the football. Why did he only have 1 carry yesterday? Like, it doesn't make sense. The usage of the players, the personnel, the plays that are being called, nothing is built on something else. And that is an offensive, we lost because of the offense yesterday. I'm not putting that on the defense. As was stated before, the offense can't put any drives together. The defense, when Gibson fumbled that ball, did the defense give up a touchdown? No. Now, CD did drop 1 in the end zone, but they didn't give up any points that drive. What more can the defense do before the offense is actually going to pull their own weight?
Yeah, I agree. I'm just looking back at the drives, and that punt, it came off of a 2-minute drive by Dallas, and then they ended up putting a 1:30 drive together down at the goal line. That didn't end up in a touchdown, but obviously, those are still those are important. And I agree with you. This loss definitely falls way more on the coaching staff and way more on the offense than it does the defense, because you cannot continue to put your defense out there over and over again. That defense played 74. If you played 100% of snaps, you played 74 snaps. You cannot have your defense go out there and play 74 snaps and expect them not to give up points.
And didn't Jalen Carter play 95% of the snaps?
Yeah, I'm just looking now. So Quinyon Mitchell played 100% of snaps. Jalen Carter played 70. Nakobe Dean 62. Makuba 71 prior to the injury. And Bond and DeJean both played 74 snaps as well. So you have half of your defense out there. Makuba was on pace to play the entire game too. You had the majority of your defense ready to that was going to be out there for 74 snaps, and now you're going to turn around on a really short week and expect them to all go out there and have to put together a bunch of snaps again.
We're going to miss. You've mentioned Adoree Jackson concussion. He's probably not going to get cleared by Friday. Makuba's out probably for the rest of the regular season, or at least most of the rest of the regular season.
And I want to say, while you're on that Jackson point, I am done with Ringo. Please, Bennett cannot be that bad. Please, Ringo came out and committed a penalty immediately. You cannot tell me that Bennett doesn't deserve a shot.
I don't think Fangio likes Ringo or Bennett because they put Coop out there, and we saw Coop was not prepared for that. So no. I have no idea I don't know what they're going to do this week. I don't know what they're going to do at safety because Makuba's obviously out. Reed has a thigh thing, I think, a thigh contusion or something, but you might not want to risk that because that could turn into a hamstring thing. So Sidney Brown, who I cannot stand, he stinks. Sidney Brown and Andre Sam, Michael Carter. Do you sign Justin Simmons off the street and let him start right away? Like, I have no idea what the Eagles are going to do in their secondary. We know Q's going to be on one side, Coop's going to be somewhere in the secondary, and Michael Carter is going to be out there. Is it going to be Ringo? Is it going to be Bennett? Or will they give Mac McWilliams a chance, who doesn't dress ever? So, like, I have no idea what they're going to do defensively.
I feel like they're probably going to put Michael Carter back there at safety because Cooper DeJean, like you saw when Cooper DeJean was moved to the outside, he wasn't an overly effective outside cornerback. And then on the inside, they just took advantage of Cooper DeJean not being there. There was one play I remember. I can't remember who he tackled on the play, but he had been outside, and then there was a play call where he was moved back into the nickel, and I feel like it was a run play. It probably was Malik Davis or Kavonte Turpin, and he made such a great tackle right at the line of scrimmage, and then was immediately moved back to the outside again. And you realize how much you miss it when he's going from outside to inside to outside to inside, and you realize on missing on those plays.
That's why Fangio said, like, in the camp, and people, he's like, I want him in there. He's the best nickel corner in the league. You know, he's a great tackle, has great football IQ. I don't know what they're going to do. Again, we talked about it. Torrey Jackson's not going to play. We know Q's going to be out there. Now, the Bears, now we're going to talk about this Thursday, but like the Bears, DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, decent at tight end.
Luther Burden, Colston Loveland. Yeah, it's Swift.
Cole Kmet, DeAndre Swift. Like, their offense is pretty good. And Caleb Williams, and they don't blow teams out either. They come from behind. So, if the Eagles jump out quick, who knows what could happen. You don't want that nightmare, especially in Philly. Things might get ugly. That's a great question. Any critique on the play call getting in late? I feel the lack of time doesn't give the offense enough time to set. I mean, it's a basic offense. It shouldn't be difficult. I 100% agree. It feels like every time the Eagles break the huddle, there's 7 seconds on the play clock. They got to rush. The one time that I remember that they actually broke the huddle with enough time was Jalen's first touchdown run. They broke it with like 20 seconds left. It was an empty set. He was able to look at the defense. The offensive line was able to pinpoint who they're going to get, and they did the QB draw, and he was able to score a touchdown. Like, it happens to, and Mailata talks about it too. Like, we need to get the play in quicker, so that they can you're able to figure out what the defense could be doing. Because if you break the huddle with 7 seconds left, you pretty much have to get up there and snap it right away. The defensive line pin their ears back because they know the ball has to get snapped right away. It's happened every game, and it's so frustrating. And again, that's a Kevin Patullo thing. You need to be 3 plays ahead. You need to know what you want to call if, scenario A happens. If we complete the pass and get a first down here, we're going to call this. If it's an incomplete pass, we're going to call this. If it's a sack, we're going to call this. If the run, if the run gets stuffed, we're going to call. You need to think 3 plays ahead as an offensive coordinator. And it seems like he's 2 steps behind every time he calls a play.
Yeah, any critique, absolutely. There's so much critique on it. Like you break the huddle, like right about the time that they cut off communication is when the call seems to finally get all the way through. They get to the line of scrimmage. Somebody had put it up on X, and it was like a perfect breakdown of it. And like, you get everyone to the line of scrimmage, you start motioning guys with like 7 seconds left, and then you wonder why there's so many of just these mechanical penalties that are happening, and some of these false starts. Like, people are like, it can't be that hard not to false start. But when you may be looking up at the play clock, or you're thinking of the time, and you're listening to the cadence, and all of this is going on, you need more time, and so there's major critiques, and you can tell that this is just a rookie offensive coordinator who's just struggling and just is wasn't cut out for, doesn't appear to have been ready and cut out for the job. And it kind of brings me back to, is Sirianni and Patullo maybe tuning out the noise as a way to say, hey, that, like, this feels, and I don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it. This feels like Peterson and
Taylor.
Taylor? Yes,
Taylor.
Preston Taylor. It's Press Taylor. I was trying to get the name there. This feels like that situation happening again, because why is the noise being drowned out? Why can people not talk about this behind closed doors and get a resolve to their issue like we talked about with AJ Brown? Is this the Sirianni, like Johnson wasn't a Sirianni guy, but Patullo is definitely a Sirianni guy. This was a guy that he has vouched for. He's been on his staff the whole time he's been in Philadelphia. Are we looking at a similar situation that a guy just can't accept that the guy's not the right guy for the job? We watched Press Taylor go off into Jacksonville and be just as bad and end up losing his job, and probably cost him Peterson his job over there too. Are we seeing like a similar situation? I don't want to say it. I don't want to think it into existence.
I don't think so, because I do now. While they've pretty much been together their entire careers, I think Sirianni is of the ilk. If Howie and Laurie tell him, "Look, we need to make a change," he'll make a change. I don't think he's
a yes man. He's the ultimate yes man for Howie and Jeffrey Lurie, and I feel like they gave him an opportunity this year based on, you won the Super Bowl, we want to give you an opportunity. And obviously they knew that the pick of the litter, like you said, wasn't very good, because most teams had already started to put together their staff. New coaching hires went, put together their staff, and so on and so forth. So maybe they said, you know what, as a goodwill gesture for winning us another Super Bowl, let's see who you want at the offensive coordinator position, and let's see what he does, and see if he can turn it into more success. And obviously it's not working out. And Patullo is, I mean, at this point, you can try and turn it around. You'd have to show us the most magical remaining games of the season, plus get us all the way to the Super Bowl and probably win it in order to keep your job.
Yeah. Again, this isn't going to be a week that the Eagles make the change at OC. It wouldn't surprise me, though, if Sirianni has Patullo on a short leash. Now, I don't know who, like, if the offense comes out and struggles in the first half, they put up 3 points, they put up no points, and the offense can't move the ball. It wouldn't surprise me if you come out of that second half and he's calling plays, Scott Leffler's calling plays, somebody else is calling plays. But, like, something needs to change, because there's zero. You can't go up 21-0 and then nothing for 41 minutes. Just can't happen. Like, if you put up one more touchdown, you win that game, you bury Dallas, you're winning the division in a couple of weeks. If not this week, in a couple of weeks. Because Dallas has the Chiefs on Thursday. They have the Detroit next week. Like, they have some tough games too. They're 5-5-1, we're 8-3. We're up, 2.5 games in the division. Let's hope that tie doesn't help Dallas. Obviously the Eagles schedule, the Bears, the Chargers, the Raiders, Washington, Buffalo, Washington. By the way, the Raiders are terrible. The Raiders might be the worst team I've seen in such a long time. They got sacked by Geno Smith got sacked 10 times by the Browns. 3 of them by Myles Garrett, who's going to set the record and probably obliterate the record. He's got 18 sacks already. It's ridiculous. Sorry, I didn't mean to go off on that tangent. But I'm just, it's been such a frustrating 24 hours after that game, just because of how it started and then how it ended. And then you got to hear all the Cal turd fraud fans, especially in this area, talk about who can't pinpoint Texas out on a map. That's the frustrating part.
Yep.
And then the other frustrating part is, like, you literally had a chance to bury that team, bury them. But now they have that slim glimmer of hope that they can make the playoffs. And maybe them having that hope and then it being crushed in a couple of weeks makes it all the better. But I just don't want this to have a 2023 feel. Mm-hmm. Because if the Eagles lose to the Bears on Friday, what the talk's going to be all next week, right? going into a Monday night game.
Well, and we know. First, I want to show Keyshawn Cato. What's up, guys? Welcome aboard. Go Birds. I agree with you. There's been so much criticism of the Eagles this year, and every loss, especially one as bad as this one, is going to add fuel to the fire. And I just don't want more fuel to the fire. I think some of the criticism has been misplaced. I feel like some of the criticism and reading into things has been unwarranted. But at the end of the day, that's what the media is going to do, and we just don't want to add any more fuel to the fire. But like you said, you know what? It's a short week. We got to pivot. We got to move on. We hit on a lot of the bad. We hit on a lot of the ugly and a little bit of good. I'm ready to look towards Chicago and hope that this is just a really seismic blip in the radar that we can correct in some form going forward.
Let's hope so. And I will say another good. Jalen did not play bad yesterday. The one bad play was the sack. You cannot take that sack on 3rd and 2.
Especially for throwing the ball 39 times and dropping back over 40 times. I mean, that's like
27 to 39.
We fear when he's dropping back that many times and throwing the ball that many times, because we know eventually it's going to catch up to him, because we all know, no one's denying it, he is not a natural passer. He is no Tom Brady or Peyton Manning. We know that, and we're not saying that. So the more you make him throw, eventually maybe he's bound to make the mistakes. Like you said, obviously the sack hurts, but he still didn't really turn the ball over, which is huge.
No, he didn't. And the Eagles, I think they had, going into yesterday's game, they had 4 turnovers, which I think is an NFL record through 10 games. They got 6. They have 6 now because they had the 2 turnovers. So again, we mentioned when the Eagles win the turnover battle, they are 40-2. I think they tied the turnover battle. They turned it over 2 times. Dallas turned it over 2 times, if I'm not mistaken. So that doesn't get incorporated into that record. They're 40-2 when they win the turnover battle. Them losing that game yesterday by not winning the turnover battle is just going to reinforce Sirianni's talk of win the turnover battle, win the game. He's not wrong. Let's get back to winning games. I don't care how it looks. Let's just win games. All right. So with it being a short week, we'll be back Thursday afternoonish, early afternoon, late morning, something like that. I'm off turkey. It's going to be Thanksgiving here in the States. Connor unfortunately has to work, but we're going to work something out to where we can get a preview show for the Philadelphia Eagles and the Chicago Bears on Thursday to get you set for that Black Friday matchup at Lincoln Financial Field. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJRaw54. And follow the Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts at Eagles Pinpool Network. We appreciate all the comments. We'll be back on Thursday. Hopefully you can join us. It'll be an early episode. We'll get you ready for the Bears and the Eagles. For Connor, I'm LJ. Thank you for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour.